Thank you, Phil. That was beautiful, and Stephanie, I think you're amazing too. My name is Philip. I'm a ball of contradiction. I'm an Englishman. I'm married to a Texan, raising 2 3-foot high little New Yorkers. I'm the son of an English TV cult hero, and the son of a French nurse. She's actually here today. I've been an athlete at an English boarding school. I've been an actor in East Village. I've been a playwright in London, a yogi in India, a brief stint as a stripper. Sorry, Mum. And I've been a teaching artist in the Bronx, and I've been a chef in the Hamptons, and I've been a reverend in Ithaca. So, as you can guess, what do I end up doing? I end up running an arts education organization. I came to this country, just to let you know a little bit about me, with $300 in cash in my pocket many years ago, about 18 years ago, and mostly just with the desire to get away from England, because I was convinced that I would amount to absolutely nothing there. So thank you for having me. So Lauren called me. So this is my stand-up routine, right? It's the last thing, so I want to make you laugh a little. So Lauren called me, said, would you do TEDx? I thought, oh, I was very honored and very flattered. And I said, okay, so what does it entail? What do I need to do? She says, well, just, think about sharing an idea that can change the world. So I was like, change the world? Yeah. Well, that's easy. That's easy. Okay, so many ideas to choose from that I've got in my back pocket. So then I started to think about big ideas that could change the world. And got to be honest with you, it got a bit pretentious there for a minute. I sort of made a few presentations and put some stuff together. And I was looking at it on Sunday night, actually, and I just couldn't really find myself in it. And I was quite bored by it, and I thought, well, if I'm the last one to go and I'm bored by it, there's not going to be much hope for you guys here. So I decided to change everything. So then I started to think, well, perhaps I will just talk about everything that annoys me about the field of arts or education or arts education, and I would just rage at you for about 15 minutes. But then when I was in healing school, I learned that rage only really creates more rage. It perpetuates itself. And that really, if you want to change, you have to accept things as they are, and then create a little bit of space around the thing you want to change, so you can sort of observe it a little bit, create some space, make a choice, and if you want to make a choice, you can start to transform it, and then you can change, then you can evolve. That was a sort of big lesson for me. And I think that's what we're here to do on this planet, all of us, 6 billion of us, is to evolve. And we're here to help each other, and we're here to enjoy ourselves. So we're here to evolve, help each other, enjoy ourselves. That's it. Very simple. So, as I was saying, I was a teaching artist. I actually worked for DreamYard. I've been a teaching artist for about 10 years, and then I've been an executive director for about 7. And at the beginning of my career, I've seen a lot of okay programs. I've seen a lot of half-baked programs. I've seen a lot of terrible programs, some of which I was responsible for. And I've seen some really, really great stuff. When I was starting out as a teaching artist at DreamYard, there was this other guy, this other teaching artist. His name was Zach. Now, Zach was one of those teaching artists that was just so good it made you sick. He could just do everything. Everything was well thought through. He was a darling. I remember this project he did with 7th graders up in East Harlem. In a social studies class, the social studies teacher wanted to figure out, well, they were studying social studies, of course, and a few wars along the way, the history of the wars, and the teacher found a through line of the way the role that boats had played in a war. And so it's like, well, let's teach that sort of through line of sort of seafaring boats, things like that. What can we do with that? So what does Dak do? He built a boat on the roof of the school, a real boat, a real big boat. Really, and he engaged the students in the design of it and the building of it and the varnishing of it and making it seaworthy and all that kind of stuff. But what's a boat going to do on the top of a New York City public school roof? It's not very useful up there, is it? So it was, coming towards the spring, about this time of year, and he then taught the students, he engaged them in some math problems, and he taught the students how to get it off the roof. And so the students were very excited about that. Beautiful sunny day, and I got half of his class were around me and a few other teaching artists. And I remember looking up at this, just one of those big school buildings, and nothing. Suddenly there's a boat coming over the edge of the thing, looming over, and you're like, oh my God. And the kids, they're losing their mind. They're freaking out. And the kids up there were also, lowering the boat down, obviously with some adult supervision. But they were lowering the boat down, and the boat came down, and it came down, and everything went to plan. And then they put it in on one of those things that you transport boats with, and took it to Central Park with the kids. And then they launched it in the lake up in Harlem in Central Park, and the kids got in it and, started sailing. So that was just one of Zach's integration projects. He also drove around in a beaten up Mercedes. He was good looking. I wanted to be Zach. I think I still do. But did Zach's program work? Right? I don't know. I didn't know then. I was in my first year. I wasn't really thinking about whether programs worked or how to measure them. I was just sort of trying not to get fired mostly, write some lesson plans, show up to work on time. Hopefully the lesson plans I write actually translate into something that actually can exist in a classroom with the students. And just along the way, I'm just trying to make a little bit of magic happen in an environment that, quite honestly, I felt like it was sort of an against all odds environment where the odds were against me. So Sir Ken Robinson, said, schools kill creativity. It's hard to make innovation happen in schools. Well, not if you're Zach, obviously. It's hard to make innovation happen in schools because schools just generally aren't set up to promote innovation. I mean, whether it's a metal detector that you get greeted with every morning, whether it's a curriculum that's out of date, a 45-minute class period, a teacher that's burnt out, or of course there's no theater, or there is a media lab, but you don't have the keys that the custodian does, and you can't find the custodian because he's not here today. But you can't take the kids out because of the liability issues, and the kids are just cranky anyway because they didn't eat lunch because they hate the lunch, or they're just bouncing off the walls because what they had for lunch was a bag of potato chips. I mean, does that sound familiar? So it's back to this idea, the industrial model of education, where what are we doing? We're managing risk. The way schools are set up today is to herd the masses, to manage risk. It's not to optimize learning, and that's a sad thought. And this is why teachers are so important. Why we love great teachers like Zach, because what can they do? They can innovate in a non-innovative environment, and they can make magic happen. But just think of Zach for a minute, thinking of his job description, waking up every day. His job description is to make magic happen every day. That sounds pretty exhausting, right? So, in Australia, to take you across the seas, in the province of Queensland in Australia, they're rethinking curriculum. They're basically throwing it all out of the window. And they've created this thing called these New Basics Curriculum Organizers. And the idea there is these four main tenets of sort of critical questions and themes that all the other curriculum is going to sprout from them. The first one is life pathways and social futures. So the question there is, who am I and where am I going? The second one is multiliteracies, a lot of what Stephanie was just doing, multiliteracies and communications media. How do I make sense of the world and how do I communicate with it? The third one is active citizenship. What are my rights and responsibilities in my community, but not just my community, my culture and economies, right? And then lastly, environments and technologies. How do I describe and analyze and shape the world around me? So these are four pretty exciting things. I mean, if I went to that, I'd love my kids to go to that school. Just think for a minute, forget about what a school looks like, all of our schooling, what we've grown up in education. If you were to just start from scratch, what would that school that basically built everything off that curriculum, what would that school look like? How would it be built? What would the classrooms look like? How would learning be structured? What would the kids be eating for lunch? How would they be interacting with their communities? I mean, I think this is such an exciting thought for me, and I think this is partly what I think is the work that we're trying to do, to bring this kind of creativity to education. I mean, don't you think that schools should be the most innovative places, right? I mean, shouldn't they be the most innovative places? Yeah. But Queensland, Australia, look, they don't have the problems that New York City has, right? Let's be real. New York City is the largest public school system in the world, not the world, but in the country. We have some very serious problems. So what do we do? How do we innovate? We're all innovators here. We're at TEDx. We are either, you should be thinking of yourself as an innovator, but even if you don't, you're here at TEDx. Interesting ideas are shared here in an innovative way. So we need to be asking ourselves, how do I make innovation happen? How do I innovate today, tomorrow? So I'm going to show you how. Hang on. All right, well, that's the best I could come up with. Well, what do? You flip things on their head. That's what I think about. You challenge your assumptions, and you have to be accountable. Mark Twain famously said that there are 3 types of lies. There's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. The saying also goes, there's another one that says, I only trust the statistics that I have doctored myself. But seriously, I think the idea of innovation and accountability or statistics are inextricably linked. Does Zach's program work? Does your program work? Does it? Do you know it does? How do you know it does? How are you measuring it? What are your criteria for success? I think that this is one thing that in the field that we're in, that we could get a lot better at, that we need to get a lot better at. I think we sort of shy away from it a bit. Do I think that, and it's because we're arts educators, right? So we believe in experiential learning, project-based learning, of course. You have to be able to really sort of understand what you're learning to be able to internalize it. But so do I believe that every, God, that headstand just took it out of me. Just so you know, I'm going to go over. I'm a bit behind, but anyway. So, do we, what was I going to say? Just shouldn't have done that headstand. So look, we value experiential learning. Do I think that a student that when they take a test at the end of the year, which they're doing now, is that the barometer of their knowledge? No, I don't think so. But doesn't every New York City public school student from the 3rd grade onwards have to take a test, at least one, every year? Yes. So, is my precious ideology more important than a student's success? Last year at Urban Arts, we were trying to land this funder that doesn't generally fund arts education. And we had some great visits at New Design High School that Scott runs. And they'd come for 1 site visit, 2 site visits, 3 site visits. How many more site visits are there going to be? I mean, how long does it take to convince them? And what's that? Oh. How long is it going to take to convince them? And I remember the phone call after about the 3rd site visit. They were like, "Yes, this is good. It's a good model. It's a good partnership. The model is educationally sound. But you know, unless you can prove that your programs are directly responsible for increasing those Regent scores of those students who may not graduate, we're not going to fund you, because that's what we fund. We break the cycle of poverty. We need those statistics, and it's just not going to happen." So I was not very happy. And I sort of thought for a minute, worlds kind of colliding in my head. I had to think a minute, and then the phone call sort of went over, it got over, and worlds colliding in my head, and I was sort of full of rage, thinking, well, in my head I was like, we're an arts organization, we don't do test scores, we don't do the regions, which just does what? And then I started to think a little bit, and there was certainly a lot of fear and facing of my assumptions. I mean, as a teaching artist, I was very interested in integrations. That's when I was teaching that was most interesting for me, to integrate into English and social studies and all that. And as a director at Urban Arts, I brought that to Urban Arts, and that's what I have. I mean, I deeply believe that the arts can re-engage students in their academics and social development. I deeply believe that. And I've got a funder on the phone saying, well, prove it. So I decided that, well, we're just going to take a step here. A little bit of, certainly a lot of fear, but a little bit of curiosity. We're just going to take a step here, and perhaps we'll fail. But either way, if I don't take this opportunity, if we don't take this opportunity, I'm a bit of a sham. Because, you know, I'm very well aware of some of the crap or some of the statistics I've been peddling over the years, right? So we did, and we hired an ex-social studies teacher from New Design High School, who's also an artist, and some of our teaching artists. We worked with the staff at New Design, and we created this curriculum called Fresh Prep that teaches the global history Regents exam through original hip-hop music. Basically, hip-hop music, hip-hop songs originally created by our teaching artists is the delivery system for these students to understand this curriculum. It's right here, it's sort of in their ears. And it also has a very sort of student-centered approach. Really what it does is it taps into the innate literacies that these students already have. Because the reason why these students struggle so much with the Regents is because it's French, it's German to them. They're not, it doesn't make sense, it's irrelevant. But what this did is it created a bridge, and it delivered the content in a way that they could understand, in a way that they were literate, in a way that they could sort of memorize and get to grips with. So anyway, long story short, we took 29 students in the summer. They'd all failed this Regents between 1 and 5 times. And they took a 12-day program, and on the 12th day they took the Regents once again, and 80 of them passed. So that's really cool. And then we did it again with, no, it's okay. Then we did it again later on with English, and 94% of those students passed. Now that's great, but what's really interesting there is what do you think the Regents is actually demanding of students in terms of knowledge? If in 12 days, through a good program, we can get them to pass, right? Like, whoa, kind of turning it on its head, right? It's saying, well, here you go, Regents, we can do this in 12 days. We really need to deepen the curriculum. Anyway, so I shared this knowledge with a colleague of mine, a leader in arts education. And we were pretty chuffed about it. And the foundation ended up funding us. Yeah, that's always nice. I said, and he said, well, that's great. I'm glad that you can help students, with their test scores and graduate. But is this arts education? And I said, I don't know. Is this arts education? And I started to think. Honestly, I was a bit crestfallen, a little embarrassed, perhaps diminished. And I started to think, do the kids really care whether this is arts education? Do the parents of the kids care whether this is arts education? What they really care about is we use an arts-based approach to help their young people, their kids who had failed, pass an exam that was basically going to define their future, because it defined whether or not they graduated high school, and perhaps that they could perhaps break the cycle of poverty. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I just want to let you know that I'm still wrestling with this. That question, is this arts education? I'm wrestling with it because urban arts is essentially, most of our programs are around project-based learning, inquiry-based learning. And then we're doing this thing which is preparing students for the Regents, and I struggle with it. So my message to you today is that innovation is hard. The iPhone wasn't created in a day, right? But I want us to, I think, shouldn't we be the ones, we're the creators, we're the artists here, creators and innovators, shouldn't we be the ones flipping things on their head and just charging full force into the world of education, not arts education, but education as a whole, because I really believe that the arts has a serious, serious role to play in that. And we should be taking a leadership role. And we should not be fighting for real estate and national curriculum. We should be driving that conversation, right? And we should be diluting, transforming, twisting inside out the arts. We shouldn't be protecting and trying to save the arts. We should be throwing it up against a wall, seeing if it sticks, turning it on its head, and seeing what happens when worlds collide. So let's evolve. Let's help each other. And let's enjoy ourselves.
Thank you, Philip. I haven't quite mastered the handstand yet, but my life as a Libra is all about balance, and my professional life. So while I'm trying to maintain tree, and before I send you on to lunch over there, and beverages at the bar, including complimentary beer and wine, I'm going to invite our commercial for the second half of the day.
Very briefly, because lunch is amazing, by Brooklyn Fare with the amazing Evelyn serving us back there. Please meet Kishana. And up in the balcony, you guys have to stand. Franz, Ricky, and Terry, all from the Susan S. McKinney Secondary School for the Arts. They're graduating at the end of June. And these amazing artists are now contemporary artists exhibiting at Brick Contemporary Art up the street. They've dominated the back wall, and everyone will get a card. You must come see the show, but also please get online to see all of our free roundtables coming up in that amazing exhibition. Also, our wonderful students and our team will be delivering the cards and several art supplies to your table. You are invited to make a postcard for Art for the New York City Roundtable. Instructions will be provided. You will be invited to take another look at the $100 Bill Project. Mel Chin is coming to town Tuesday, June 8th, PS 119, Avenue K in Flatbush with the armored truck, which Queens Museum, Sunday, June 6th, the truck that is fueled by cafeteria school vegetable oil. So the kids will come around and actually help you with your drawing if you need such, but otherwise your materials will be there. If you don't have time to make one, take one with. Log on to fundred.org. The project is still on. We still need fundreds. Our muse is in the house. Tat Fu Tan has arrived. And come forward, lovely JT. On your tables, you will find, that after we deliver them, a lovely t-shirt that says, "Hello, my name is..." Should I put your name? Yeah. And you will be, don't move, don't breathe. You will be entering your name, a brief bio, which I won't do now because that's bad. And then in the bottom it says, "May I dance with you?" which you're going to need because we will indeed, you're stepping on my thing, we will have a tango instructor. And you will be invited up at any point to meet someone by reading their bio and following the steps to learn the tango since you've been sitting all morning. So that's our commercial. Have a marvelous lunch, and what a great morning. Fantastic. So let's get the boys and deliver all the art.